patients. Here was a question, a good question came in. In our cancer diet guideline notebook, it states that natural sweeteners should be used in place of sugar, but limited. How much is limited? Is it appropriate for one substitution acceptable? I mean, it says a cup of sugar, use an acceptable substitution for the cup of sugar. Is that okay? Still making cookies that way? What is considered too much? How about stevia, which is labeled in the notebook as acceptable? Is that to be treated any different than the other natural sweeteners? Wonderful question. So usually this is gone over by the person who went over your 3-ring binder, but I know it's like drinking from a fire hose on your second day here sometimes, and you don't hear everything, and it doesn't all get registered. But you have to understand that even good natural sweeteners, like, oh, can I eat all the raw honey that I want? Can I eat all the Manuka honey that I want because it's natural? Can I eat all the pure maple syrup that I want, or coconut palm sugar? The answer is no, you can't, because still, though these are natural sweeteners, they're still going to break down to glucose. So here's a picture just pulled off the internet of the glycemic index. That means the rate at things break down into glucose. Well, of course, glucose breaks down into glucose. It is glucose. Table sugar is sucrose. That is, two sugar molecules together, and they break down. It breaks down to glucose very quickly. And then, like the erythritol, mannitol, and these sugar alcohols are down here they have a very low glycemic index. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're healthy sugars to eat constantly. So is it okay? We have some bars from one of the supplement companies that we have in our break room here that uses erythritol as its sweetener. So it has a very low glycemic index, so it's very good for diabetic patients. But still, eating erythritol all the time, a sugar alcohol all the time, and thinking that you're not, that you're doing good for your body is not really a truism. Is it okay to eat one of those a couple times a week? Yeah, it's not going to be any problem. But if you're eating a couple a day thinking you're not raising your glucose levels, well, you really aren't raising your glucose levels, but it is hard for your body to break down the sugar alcohol. So it's not something that's supposed to be. So when we say limited, you have to kind of use some common sense there. So common sense is based upon information. So that's what I want to do here. Can I use natural sweeteners like raw honey and pure maple syrup on a daily basis? Well, if your diet that we put you on was a more ketogenic-like diet, where we took you off of a lot of carbs, where we're limiting your grains, then you have to strongly limit these natural sweeteners. And let's leave stevia out of here, but let's talk about raw honey, pure maple syrup, monk fruit, and coconut palm sugar. These will still break down to glucose. Stevia will not break down to glucose. So these 4 will still break down to glucose, so we want to limit that. So what does that word limited mean? Well, if you are on a more ketogenic diet, so if a person's on a true ketogenic diet, you're not eating any of those. If you're on a keto-like diet, which we put most of our patients on, if you had those once a week, I'd say that would be acceptable. If you're not on that and you're on a mixed diet where you're decreasing some of the proteins and we have you everybody's off of sugar, but we're not limiting your other complex carbs. If you had this a couple times a week, that would be fine. So if you decided to make some cookies out of almond flour and coconut palm sugar, could you have a couple little cookies? Sure. Could you eat the whole batch of cookies? No. So I'm not here to give you how many cookies you could eat or how many grams of this that you want to stick to, but you have to use some common sense. If you eat too much of any of these things other than stevia, you're going to raise your glucose levels and you're just feeding your cancer. So part of this has to do with just, okay, we could eat some raw honey, but that doesn't mean we're going to substitute it. We're going to just make all our own cookies now out of flours that are carbohydrates and honey that is a simple carbohydrate, and think that we're not raising our blood sugar. Now, one of the things that you can do, because everybody's body is different in how you respond to these things, is you can get yourself a glucometer. A glucometer, if you don't know what that is a little teeny device that you can buy at Target that has little strips in it that you can prick your finger and test your blood sugar. So you can wake up in the morning and test your blood sugar. Now, many of you I've told to do this, and you, let's say, in a fasting 12-hour state, your blood sugar is 85. That's really good. So it's 85. And then you eat breakfast, and it bounces up to 170. So if you ate breakfast and 20 minutes after breakfast, your blood sugar went up to 170, it's a pretty good chance that you had way too many carbohydrates in your breakfast. So did you eat waffles with syrup on it? Well, it was pure maple syrup. Well, I know, but it was 3 tablespoons of pure maple syrup on a waffle that's all carbohydrates. It just spiked your blood sugar. That's not good. So 2 hours after eating any meal, your blood sugar should drop back down to normal. So let's say you ate at 8 o'clock and it's 11 o'clock and you test your blood sugar 3 hours after you eat and your blood sugar is still over 100, you're probably spiking your glucose too high. So that's another way that you can test your own, is my glucose level, is my carbohydrate level exceeding really my body's ability to bring it back under control? Because all these things, this is why we say limited, because we can't give you strict data because your body may be different. So it has to do with your pancreas's ability to produce insulin and then your cell membrane's ability to receive the insulin to get the glucose out of the bloodstream. So if you get your glucose back in normal ranges, meaning a perfect normal range would be 75 to 90, that would be a perfect normal fasting glucose range, 75 to 90 if you're not in a ketogenic state. Then in 2 hours post-pran, 2 hours post-eating, your glucose is down back to 89. You're doing great. So you did a good job with being able to regulate that glucose back down. If you want more help on this, then give our office a call and we can walk through your situation directly. You have to remember with any glucose, so any food that you're eating, so food that's breaking down to glucose, remember glucose is the sugar, so all your carbohydrates are going to break down to glucose. Many of your proteins are going to break down to glucose. It goes through a process here that is in this arrow here called glycolysis. There's a whole bunch of steps in here. And one of the purposes of glycolysis, it gives off energy, it gives off 2 ATPs. And at the end point of glycolysis is this chemical called pyruvate. Now, pyruvate is very important. It's the end point of glycolysis. And then pyruvate is supposed to convert through this enzyme called the PDH enzyme. This is the gene that makes that enzyme, into this very important chemical called acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A is the entry point for the Krebs cycle. Why do I need to know all this stuff? Because this is how your body makes energy. You take in food, you break it down into glucose, it breaks down into pyruvate, makes 2 energy molecules. It converts through this gene, and that's why when we look at your genetics, we look at that gene and we look at the HIF1 gene, because these genes are so important in breaking down pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A, because acetyl coenzyme A sends it into the Krebs cycle, and this is where you really kick out energy. This takes place in the mitochondria of the cell here. So the mitochondria of the cell, this is what's taking place. In cancer patients, not all cancer patients, but many cancer patients, so when we test you and you test high on pyruvate with kinesiology, or we look at your genetics and you have defects in your PDH gene and your HIF genes, then you're going to be more apt to not be able to convert pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A. Well, what's the big deal about that? Well, it is a big deal because you will convert pyruvate to lactic acid, and that's what feeds cancer. It also can cause diabetes and liver problems. But it's a main food source of cancer. Right there, lactate, lactic acid. Pyruvic or pyruvic acid will convert to lactate with defects in the PDH gene and defects in the HIF gene. And when you have excess glucose coming through glycolysis and it's unable to make this conversion takes some time. Matter of fact, if you really want to get technical about this, when you are first starting to get in shape, oh, I think I need to get in shape. Well, when is the last time you exercised, Dr. Connors? Well, it was high school. Okay, so this is going to be a process in getting in shape. Maybe we better start running. Oh, no, no, no. I used to run cross country in high school, so I'm going to start running right away. So I go buy myself some running shoes, and I'm going to start running, and I get about a block before I'm ready to throw out and pass out. But I push through it because I remember my days in high school that I was really a good runner, and I don't want to look silly to the people who are sitting out in their garage watching me run by their driveway. So I keep pushing on, holding back my stomach, and I push on and I run 3 blocks before I'm ready to conk out. And I can't figure out why I am so sore the next day. You know where that soreness comes from? The soreness comes from when you use your muscles that you haven't used like that for a long time. Your muscles need energy. So in order for your muscles to continue to contract in the act of a workout, it's a calling for energy. Where do you get energy? You get energy through glycolysis, kicking out ATP, and then converting pyruvate into acetyl coenzyme A, going into the Krebs cycle and kicking out a whole bunch of ATP. So that's energy. So your muscles are calling for that process to take place. It's sucking glucose from your blood. Well, that's what we want, right? That would be really good. It's converting it to pyruvate. And then this process through the PDH gene is time restricted. So this process takes time. So the conversion from pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A takes time. And the less you use this pathway, the slower it is. So I haven't really used this pathway very extensively since high school in my muscles. So this is not converting to acetyl coenzyme A, and it will remain in my muscles as pyruvate. The problem is pyruvate or pyruvic acid is poisonous. And if you have excess pyruvate, you die. So your body has this ingenious way to protect you. It converts pyruvate through the LDH gene to lactate. So pyruvate converts to lactic acid, and the purpose is lactic acid makes you sore. So muscle fatigue, muscle pain post-workout is because of excess lactic acid in the muscles. Because I'm not in very good shape, this pathway here hasn't been stimulated very much in my muscles. Now, the more I work out, so tomorrow I'm going to work out and I'm going to be more reasonable and I'm just going to walk and then jog a block and then walk a couple more blocks. And the next day I'm going to walk and jog a block and walk a couple more blocks. The next day I'm going to walk and jog 2 blocks. And I'm going to keep this up. And over the course of the next 4 months, I'm able to convert glucose to pyruvate and pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A more efficiently. So the more efficient my muscles become at converting pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A is called getting in shape. So me getting in shape, so when you say, are you in good shape? Yeah, I ran a 5K and my time is getting better. Now I can do it in 32 minutes or now I can do it in 21 minutes. That process of getting in shape literally is your ability to convert pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A more quickly. Why is that important? Well, it is important with cancer patients because the inability to do so will produce more fuel for a cancer. So that brings us back to the age-old question. Should a cancer patient exercise? And my statement across the board for a long time has been yes, but do it gently and do something you enjoy, because we don't want to go, oh, I think cancer patients should exercise, so I'm going to go jump on the treadmill and do something stupid like I typically do, thinking of I'm going to relive my glory days of high school when I could run a 5K at 16 minutes. Well, that ain't ever happening again. So let's be realistic, and we don't want to produce all this lactic acid in a short period of time, thinking that this is how I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to really push it. That's not the way to do it. You want to work out very slowly so you're not getting sore. So instead of taking 4 months to be able to run a 5K, it would be great if all my cancer patients could run a 5K. That would be wonderful. They're really good at pushing this pathway. However, if you haven't been in that position, we want to take, instead of 4 months to get in shape, maybe a year and a half to get in shape. Being more patient so that we're not producing a bunch of lactic acid. Does that make sense? I know the question was about sugar and how can we eat natural sweeteners, but I tend to think on metabolic pathways and why you would want to or not do something. So the more sugar that you eat and that you're not exercising, you're not even pulling this pathway, so the muscles aren't even exercising. This is why we tend to get fat when we eat a whole bunch of sugar and it's not even producing any energy because the muscles aren't calling for energy. Also, this is how we can feed cancer when we're eating things that break down to glucose, which is any carbohydrates, and things like raw honey and maple syrup are going to be higher on the glycemic index, meaning they'll break down to sugar even more quickly. And if I'm not using that sugar to produce energy, my cancer is going to use it to make more cancer cells. So hopefully that answered that question, even with more information that you ever wanted to know. Next question. When the liver empties itself during a coffee enema, where do the toxins go? Does this require 2.5 detox effort? Also, other than minerals and a lot of water for the sauna, sweating detox, does the body need extra help there as well? Good question. So let's just make something really clear. When you do a coffee enema, it doesn't magically cause your liver to detoxify. It helps support detoxification mainly by stimulating the vagal nerve, the cranial nerve 10 in the sigmoid colon. So that is going to stimulate phase 1, phase 2, phase 2.5 detoxification neurologically. So does that mean you still need support for phase 2.5s? Like if I have PEMT gene defects, that is decreasing my ability to make choline, so I'm not getting bile production. Do I need support with phase 1, with maybe taking milk thistle? So all those things need to be assessed with kinesiology or with something that we can measure that your detox is going the way that it wants to go, the way that we want it to go. Do you need extra minerals if you're sweating, if you're doing a sauna? I think that's what she's alluding to this question. If I'm doing a sauna on a daily basis and I'm sweating out my minerals, do I need to be taking extra minerals? Yes, possibly. It depends on partially how much you're sweating. It depends on whether you're sweating other than doing the sauna. And it depends on if you're like what your diet is too, because we really want you to get most of your nutrients through your diet. So if your diet is, if you're using a greens product, if you're juicing, if you're eating a lot of vegetables and they're organic sources, then you might be getting plenty of minerals. So if we're really concerned about that, it might be good to do a basic comprehensive metabolic panel. That's a blood test to make sure that our electrolytes are not thrown off. We certainly don't want that. But you can certainly take some minerals, and again, refer back to the video that I talked about that talks about good minerals versus bad minerals and how they need to be chelated, etc. But taking a mineral supplement, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You really can't OD on it. Increasing magnesium as a mineral in your mineral sources as well is important, and that can help keep your bowels loose as well. Next question. I want to let you know that I have had continual pain right below my left rib, wondering if my liver was overloaded. So I've been doing 2 coffee enemas a day, noticing a lot more hard black specks in my morning bowel movements and quite a few liver flukes, maybe after my evening enema. Glad to be getting them out. Well, first of all, a little bit of anatomy. Your liver, really where you'll feel liver pain is going to be under the right rib, typically not the left rib. Even though part of your liver is under your left side, you're going to feel more spleen issues there. If you have pain underneath your left rib, most likely it's colon, not liver. So I wouldn't think that pain under your left rib is liver. So that would not be my go-to. I would think that could be colon. Make sure you just, and I've told many of you before, sometimes it's good to put a little oil, massage oil or coconut oil on your tummy and rub your tummy. It could be good to have your partner maybe knead your belly like they're making a loaf of bread. It can be very healthful. There's a technique called bloodless surgery. There was actually a book, I think it's out of print now, written by Dr. Major Desjardins. He was one of my instructors. He was in his like 80s, 90s when he was my instructor back in the early 80s. But he was just a master at that, and I learned from him that technique of manipulating your viscera from the outside in a form of what's called bloodless surgery. So that massage technique is a very old Chinese acupuncture technique as well that you could really help get your bowels moving. And I mean, think you got 30 feet of intestines in that tummy of yours, including your stomach, including your liver, including your spleen, and other ovaries and uterus. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. So moving that around can be very helpful in a massage-like way. Black specks in your stool, that could be so many different things there. I don't know where to go on that. Liver flukes are very small, so is it possible that you can see liver flukes? Yes, liver flukes are a parasite that probably the majority of people in the world have liver flukes, and that you can see those in your stool as well. Next question, I've been getting leg cramps. So this kind of ties back to that mineral question of after doing saunas. I've been getting leg cramps during the night. Do I need more potassium in the diet? I don't think I'm dehydrated. I drink a lot of water during the day. Any suggestions for this? Well, leg cramps at night, I just pulled this little ditty off the website. If you're exercising rigorously, you can have leg cramps. Why? Because you have lactic acid buildup in your muscles. If you have any hormonal or fluid imbalances, electrolyte imbalances, this is exactly what this person is referring to. Do I need more potassium in my diet? Dehydration could cause this. Any neurological issues can cause this as well. But let's just talk about the most common thing. The most common thing is what this person is alluding to, an electrolyte imbalance. So understand, so your electrolytes are very important to keep in balance. That is basically your mineral content of your blood. And if they go out of balance, one of the first symptoms is going to be restless legs, muscle fatigue, leg cramps, having to wake up with Charlie horse. That's a major sign of imbalance in your electrolytes. The misconception that people have is that they think they're dehydrated. That's why they're getting the problem. And dehydration can cause the problem. But when we drink too much water, that could be even more so the problem because we're flushing out our electrolytes. So we hear, oh my gosh, we need to be drinking more water. So I'm drinking 75 ounces of water a day because that's very healthful for me. Well, it can be, but you could be losing your electrolytes. So if you are flushing out your electrolytes through drinking too much water, that could be the problem. Again, the only way to know for sure is to get a blood test, but certainly before getting the blood test, I would just add some minerals to my diet and see if that makes a difference. Now, some people do better drinking less water. I know if you Google it, it's going to say drink half your body weight in water every day. I just don't like generalities like that because some people do much better drinking much less water than that. And if they drink more, they flush it out. I've had people that drink 2 glasses of water a day, and you test their total body water on a biometric test, and their total body water is 60%, which is great. And it's like you only drink 2 glasses of water a day. And I've had people that are drinking 60 ounces of water a day, and basically they're flushing out their electrolytes, and they are causing themselves to be dehydrated because it is your electrolytes that help hold your water in your tissues. So if you're flushing out your electrolytes, you're just going to pee all the water out. And you might be drinking 60 ounces a day, but then you look at your total body water on a biometric test, and it's like 45%. So you're creating a state of dehydration by drinking too much water. So add some minerals. That would be my first suggestion to your diet. You could even add some pink salt or something to your food. That could be beneficial as a mineral source as well. Next question. Is it normal to be tired or sleepy after surgery? Is it one's body just slowing down to heal? It can be. So it can be normal. It's your body's a way to just slow you down so that you do heal. And that can be the possibility. You do also want to check anemia. So getting a blood test again, we want to look at that. Too tired after surgery, that can be a sign of a bleed too. So it's a good idea to just get a comprehensive blood panel by your doctor and send your results in, email them to the clinic so I can look at them, because anemia can be not that uncommon post-surgery. Looking at electrolyte balance, looking at all those mineral balances, a lot of the questions were similar this week. It's interesting. But that could be important. So I wouldn't just take it as, oh, it's a good thing I want to rest. It very well could be, but it might be good to get a blood panel done.